Welcome to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. It's part of the Wrestling Wednesday card. I'm your host, Michael Davis. Last week, our nomination ceremony, we promised our first interview on Drop the Mic, and today is the day. Referee Youngblood is going to be joining us shortly for an insight in pro wrestling referee's mind. Also, later on, I'm super excited. We welcome in the popular owner of the Instagram account, Talkin Suplexes. He also does a blog for some TNA preview as they rebrand and hit the reset button this weekend for Hard to Kill. But without further ado, we got to get the guys on. Let's enter the multiverse of mics to discuss what happened last week on WWE programming that set up the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season with my guest, Mike Milley from the Mouthing Off with Mike Wrestling podcast. Mike, when I was on your show, I wanted to do a sound effect, but I was like, this is all I got. And it looks like it entertained at least one person.
You took me off guard with that. Thanks for having me on Drop the Mic this week. I'm excited to talk about some WWE here when it comes to the multiverse of mics. And next time you're on the show, I'll make sure I come up with a unique sound effect for us.
That would be awesome. If you're not already, Mike has his handle right there at MOWM podcast _podcast. You got Facebook, Instagram. We got a new TikTok now. You're subscribed to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel as well. Like, that's where you saw last week's season 3 premiere. That's where you're seeing this episode right now. And without further ado, we got to get into some WWE stuff because I took a 60-second mic drop and I wanted a little bit more time on this. But The Rock showed up last week on Monday Night Raw, beating the returning WWE champion in Jinder Mahal, and then asking fans if he should sit at the head of the table. What made this great was Roman Reigns. He shows up on SmackDown, and you're expecting Roman to acknowledge that The Rock did it. But as soon as he steps out of the limo and gets asked, he's like scoffs and walks away. Like he has bigger business to take care of. What did you make of how they started to bring these two characters together? And do you think it means we're finally getting this match at WrestleMania 40?
It's funny how this all came to be, you know. So we had Rock make that surprise appearance in Colorado on SmackDown back in, I think it was maybe September, you know, and Pat McAfee showed up. He beefed with Grayson Waller and Theory got the Rock rub. And then, I didn't really hear too much about The Rock. And then all of a sudden the Rose Bowl, Nick Khan's in the picture, and here's The Rock on Monday Night Raw. And he makes the tease at sitting at the head of the table. So this whole time, Rock's been very active on social media. He was active in WWE a couple months ago. Not once was it brought up, not once referenced. So there is the possibility that the match does take place at Mania. We are in Mania season, just about. We're on the cusp. But I don't think so, Mike. I think this match smells Elimination Chamber, main event, 60,000+ people, Perth, Australia.
Bro, that would be such a letdown.
I don't think it's a letdown. I think WWE is actively trying to make these premium live events outside of Mania, Rumble, Survivor Series, and SummerSlam, make them feel bigger, make them feel like a premium live event. And Elimination Chamber right now, we don't really know what the matches are. Obviously Rhea's probably involved someplace on the card, but The Rock, Australia, there's a lot of Samoans in Australia. It very well could be The Rock and Roman. Maybe match 1 takes place at the Chamber. Maybe a second match happens at Mania 40. But I think it makes sense up until the road to WrestleMania. Things will get clearer come Royal Rumble and once we get further from it. But I think Mania 40 is out of the question as of right this moment. But I don't count it out.
I'm just saying, if you ever watched The Young Rock and saw, The Rock holding his little cousin, Roman, oh no, a match that big can only happen at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I watched Young Rock.
Building this.
Because I watched Young Rock, that's why I thought The Rock was about to announce his presidency on Raw last week. So I thought that's where we're headed. But I guess we're headed to maybe the Young Rock coming full circle in a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, maybe. I could argue this with you for. I could argue with this. I could go back and forth with you for hours because I think the smart play is Elimination Chamber. That sells Chamber. Like that sells the concept of us in the States waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the premium live event to begin with, because you're in Australia, so we got to be up at 5 a.m. to even watch Elimination Chamber here in
Oh
the
my
States.
gosh. Don't
So
ooh,
that's where part of me
don't
says that. And yeah, 5 a.m., brother. You get ready. February.
don't tell me that I need to be up at 5 a.m. because my sleep schedule is as whack as it is. But what's whack is if they don't cash in on the biggest money match and The Rock versus Roman Reigns. No disrespect to Cody, no disrespect to his story, but Rock Roman, if you have the chance there, you got to do it. But one thing that they didn't do is Damian Priest didn't cash in Money in the Bank on Seth Rollins and win the World Heavyweight title. Makes you think, is there a right time? Because we're fastly approaching WrestleMania season, then right after is Money in the Bank in the summer. Like, is there a right time to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase?
Yeah, I think so. I think the right time is coming up at WrestleMania 40. I think Priest cashes in Mania 40 and he recreates the heist of the century on the man who did this heist of the century at WrestleMania 31, Seth Rollins. So I think Seth and Punk, if that is the Mania match rumored, I think it ends with one of them winning the championship. Maybe Seth retains against Punk at Mania. Maybe Punk wins against Seth, whatever you want to slot in there. And I think it ends with neither of those men leaving with gold, and Priest leaves Mania with the gold and a successful cash in. That's my guess.
Dude, I really like that guess, especially since Money in the Bank's so synonymous with CM Punk winning back-to-back times. You mentioned Heist of the Century happened 9 years ago. 9 years ago.
9 years,
That
dude.
would be
9 years.
huge. And Judgment Day, like, they deserve to have somebody with the world title gold. And after Priest's match with Bad Bunny last year at Backlash, which I nominated as best event of the year, by the way, go vote in the wrestling movement Facebook page. Um, that would be huge for him. And speaking of factions, we saw Karrion Kross on SmackDown officially align with the Authors of Pain, Akam and Razar coming back with Paul Ellering. I've met Paul Ellering, fun fact.
Oh, hell yeah.
What's your expectations? Oh, it was awesome. What's your expectations for Cross, AOP, Scarlett, Ellering? And do you like them feuding with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits right off the bat?
Yes, I have extremely high expectations. You could say my expectations are like RVD. They are so high for this faction. As for attacking Lashley and the Profits, I think it makes sense because the crowd did not boo Lashley and the Almighty Profits is what, we're billing them. I'm billing them. What the internet wrestling community is billing them. They didn't want to boo them. They tried to make them heels. They tried to have them feud with LWO all those months ago. Nobody wanted to boo Bobby Lashley at this stage in the game. He's an icon. He's a legend. No fans want to boo the guy. They want to cheer him. They want to see him successful. Same with the Street Profits. So I think the logical sense is if you want to get Cross in this faction over as like downright despicable heels, feud him with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. That's great. It turns Lashley and Profits, really clear cut faces, and it gives you a clear cut direction heel wise with the faction. So high hopes. Love that they put Paul Ellering back with them. I spoke about it on my show. Worst decision they ever did 4 years ago was taking Paul Ellering away from AOP. I hope this hits, and I hope big things are in store for that faction.
And watch your episode. You guys can go follow Mouthing Off with Mike Wrestling Podcast on YouTube. He does some really great stuff. Got the YouTube shorts as well, popping off as well.
Trying.
The big TikTok star right here. But dude, Ellering added an element to the Road Warriors, and Ellering adds an element to AOP because you can't put the microphone in either of their hands. You could put it in Carrion's, but man, with Ellering leading this stable, I mean, the sky is the limit for these guys. And apparently, AOP's been under contract for quite some time, and now they're just being brought back. It just, especially with
Confusing.
Triple H at the helm, but with Triple H at the helm, it feels feels right. It feels like
It does.
this is what Triple H wanted.
A lot of I feel like what we're seeing is a kind of a redo of what Triple H wanted to do maybe 4 or 5 years ago with a lot of this the black and gold, initial NXT talent. I think this is kind of in Triple H's redo where it's like he's got creative control, main roster, it's his shows, with maybe Nick Khan, maybe whoever else is involved. But yeah, I think a lot of what we're going to start seeing is going to be what Triple H wanted all those years ago when he had these guys and gals in NXT black and gold. So I'm all for it. I think, like you said, sky is the limit.
And speaking of with two NXT guys, big part of the NXT UK branching out was Pete Dunne, now known as Butch, and Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate debuted on SmackDown as Butch's partner. I still want to call him Pete Dunne after all these years. But I almost kind of saw this coming of Bate and Butch teaming up together. But what does this mean for the Brawling Brutes? Because Ridge is back at NXT. Sheamus is out with an injury. Where does this all fit in? Do you even like this pairing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest. When I was in college, man, I used to watch a ton of NXT UK. So like seeing Tyler Bate become the United Kingdom champion at 19 years old, and Pete Dunne Butch doing it at 21 years old, and these are guys that have now been with the company for going on 7, 8, 9 years. So this was well warranted, well deserved for Tyler Bate. He put the work in NXT UK, and it finally, got him, with Butch on the main roster. I like this tag team. Brawling Brutes, I think, are finished and done with. I think Sheamus comes back single star, and I think Ridge, they're going to try to rework who he is in NXT.
That'd be interesting. And one thing that happened with Ridge is they had that spot with Ilya Dragunov that, kind of recreated that spot with Big E. I personally thought it was insensitive. We don't have the time to get into that because we got referee Youngblood coming in a couple minutes. But that did mean that Trick Williams versus Ilya Dragunov was delayed after they said 2 weeks ago, yeah, this match is still happening a week after what happened between Ridge and Ilya. Did they go about this the right way? Did they have like a good backup plan, even if this was a storyline written? Like, it just didn't feel really well put together.
It was weird. What wasn't a big fan initially of the whole fake Ridge injuring Ilya storyline. Um, NXT New Year's Evil made it a little bit clearer. They said, okay, Ilya can't compete, whatever. Trick's going to take on a former Iron Survivor, winner. Grayson Waller's here, right? Mello being jealous, or Mello, trying to maybe get under, and dethrone Trick, puts that title shot on the line. Trick still wins that match. I think this is just going to onset Trick versus Mello, and I think it'll maybe take place Mania weekend at Stand and Deliver. That's my thoughts.
That would be so Trick versus Ilya WrestleMania weekend.
Well, I think Mello and Trick is going to end up becoming the match. I think
Okay.
Trick and Ilya will happen prior to that. I think Trick will beat Ilya, and then Mello will finally just snap and finally admit that he attacked Trick all those months ago, and it was Mello all along. And then that's what I think turns into that grudge match, Stand and Deliver. That might be Mello's last match on NXT before he heads to the main roster.
Wow. And I agree. That is the money match for WrestleMania. And did they get the money match right with the Royal Rumble with Roman attacking LA Knight, AJ Styles, Randy Orton in the triple threat? All this making the fatal four-way for the Royal Rumble. I don't know, man. I'm actually kind of excited for the Royal Rumble being a fatal four-way. We haven't seen Roman put his title on the line against three guys before.
Me too. I'm excited for this match. Three big names: AJ Styles, LA Knight, yeah, the Viper, Randy Orton, and Roman Reigns. Four big names here. This was the right direction to handle it. Going to make Roman look massively strong if he beats all three. And then how do you follow that up with The Rock at the Elimination Chamber? There's the logic there.
I don't know about that, but I do know how to follow this segment up. I know how to follow this segment up. You follow it up with Referee Youngblood. Multiverse of Mike's back with you on the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. Go follow them on YouTube, all the social handles at MOWM_podcast. We got to let Mike out here. And when we come back, we got Referee Youngblood to give us a little insight into what it's like to be a pro wrestling referee next on Drop the Mic. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. As part of the Wrestling Wednesday card, I'm your host, Michael Davis, and we have a special guest on Drop the Mic this week. In 2024, we're going to be conducting interviews with some beloved people in the wrestling business to give you that little, different perspective when you start watching wrestling. And so I am pleased to have none other than Referee Youngblood in with us. Now, I'm kind of confused at who is Referee Youngblood. Is it the guy in the hoodie, or is it the the cuddly guy in the referee shirt right behind you?
So it's the guy. They're kind of one and the same, but referee. So Youngblood is not my real name. My real name's Bill Daniel, but I go by Referee Youngblood in the ring. Like a lot of wrestlers have their in ring persona and their out of ring persona, and I'm kind of the same way. I have an in ring persona as the referee and an outside the ring. I mean, they're both very closely tied together personality wise and everything like that. I'm the same person as far as that goes. I'm a pretty sociable guy. I'm always smiling, happy to be doing refereeing, happy to be alive, happy to be where I'm at here in Northeast Tennessee. So kind of the same person, but the way Youngblood came about was one of my first matches. The commentator forgot my name, and he said I looked like a cross between Chief J Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat now, the older one. If I got rid of the goatee and the facial
Hey,
hair, but
that's a compliment.
but yeah. So I had to get that was one of the pictures I had to get when I was at WrestleCade was with Ricky Steamboat there. But so he introduced me as Referee Youngblood, and it stuck.
Wow.
So, and I've been Referee Youngblood ever since.
Wow. And so you said are living the dream as a referee. We'll call you Referee Youngblood so people can find your work everywhere.
Yeah.
We don't want them searching for, just Bill. But how'd you get into the business of being a referee? Because I'm sure, like many of us, we've grown up as fans, but a lot of people never entered the business. How'd you get
Yeah.
intertwined with it?
So, the way I got involved as a referee, I've been a fan all my life since I was a little kid, since 1970. First match that I went to with my dad and my older brother. We went. This is back in Florida Championship Wrestling, back during the territorial times and stuff like that. That's where I started becoming a wrestling fan. But I first stepped into the ring as a referee. November 4th of 2022. And the way that came about was we moved from Fredericksburg, Virginia to Northeast Tennessee in 2020. And when I moved here, we started watching, I started going to like the local wrestling matches and just going as a fan, ticket paying fan. And then I'm one of those type of people that I've got to be doing something. So I'd show up early. That's the military in me. I'd always show up early while they're setting up the ring. So I'd say, hey, you need any help? I started helping setting up the ring, tearing down the ring, that kind of stuff. Well, then I got to start knowing the wrestlers and the promoters and those kind of things. And from that, I had initially asked two referees, which was Shane Chess and Hunter Sharp. I asked them to about becoming a referee, and they kind of gave me some pointers, and hooked up with one of the local independent wrestlers. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I said, I'd like to give this referee thing a try. I said, my whole background's military, law enforcement, firefighter. So my whole life, I've been enforcing rules and yelling at people who don't follow them. Right. So no matter their size. Right. So I said, that's what a referee does. Right. So he said, well, and I know the rules because I've been watching for 50 plus years as a fan. So we'd set up the ring, and it was with Iconic Championship Wrestling, ICW, which is out of Elizabethton, Tennessee. Um, before the doors open, that guys are in there practicing and stuff like that. So the wrestler, he puts me in the ring and he says, "Hey, do a couple practice matches." So I'm in there doing the practice matches. Well, he goes and gets a promoter, and has a promoter come out, him and his wife, or his uh, co-partner, I guess, at the time. But I did two kind of practice matches as a referee, and he calls me out of the ring. Jason and Vanessa Baker. So they called me out the ring, and Jason asked me. He said, "Well, how long you been refereeing?" And I said, "Well, believe it or not," I said, "that's the first time I ever set foot in a wrestling ring. Was that time?" And he said, "Well, they looked at each other and said, well, we were talking, said, it looks like you've been doing this for years." So, we started talking some more, and he said, how's your schedule look next Saturday? And I said, "It's clear." I said, "I'm planning on coming to watch wrestling." And he said, "Well, I'm going to put you in the ring." And he said, "We'll start training you." And that's kind of how it started. So I went from there, and they would give me kind of pointers, and, "Hey, your 3 count's too slow," or, "Hey, you need to do this," or, "Don't stand here because you get run into," or, little tips like that. They'd watch me and see, okay, what did I need to tighten up on, those kind of things. And that's kind of how it all started for me. And then it just blossomed from there.
And you mentioned it blossoming. Also, thank you for your service, being in the military and
Oh,
being
thank
in
you.
law
Thanks.
enforcement. It's interesting to see how it's like directed you all to the path you are now, being a
Yeah.
professional wrestling official referee, and you've also been recognized. There was
Yeah.
some local Carolina awards. You mentioned you're in Tennessee, but you got nominated for the Carolina Awards as Referee of the Year nominee. We'll know the results
Yeah.
probably when this releases to the public, and then also you were the School of Morton Referee of the Year.
Yes.
How does it feel to, as early in your refereeing career, to be nominated for those type of awards?
It's first, it's an honor. It's an honor to be able to referee, number one, and number two, to be recognized. In my first year, really, as a referee, in just over, my first year as a referee, to be recognized, to be nominated in the Carolinas as a referee of the year nominee in Carolinas, and to get the School of Morton 2023 referee of the year, it's a huge honor.
I've wanted to ask this for a long time because when I'm like in the heat of a match as a fan, especially if I'm pulling for a heel, I will get onto the ref being like, "Slow count." And it's one of those fun things for fans to do, but from a referee's perspective, how much do you listen to the crowd when you're refereeing, and how does that impact what you're doing in the ring?
So first, I love when the crowd gives me a hard time. And the reason why is because that means they're engaged, to what's going on in the ring. And the thing I always hate to see is people just watching like they're watching a movie, just quiet, watching the match and stuff. And I'm like, no, you get involved. The reason why you came here was to scream and yell and stuff. And if that's at me, then go ahead, but it's, I get so laser focused in the match at the wrestlers and what's going on. So a lot of times, I can hear the crowd and I can hear them, especially when I'm doing a count. Of course, you're doing the 1, 2, and then they kick out, and you hold up the 2, and they're like, "Ah, come on, ref, that was 3. You can't count it." And sometimes I'll interact with the fans, depending on if the wrestlers are kind of separated and not together doing something. Then I have time. I can look over at the fans and go like, "Hey, that was 2. That was 2. If he holds him down for 3, I'll count the 3." But does it influence uh, the way I referee, as far as how fast I'm counting or what I'm counting or what I'm calling as fouls or these kind of things. It doesn't influence me as far as that goes because I go by the set of rules. I'm very strict about that. So I'm like, I don't care if you're a face or a heel. If you've got the person in the turnbuckle, I'm giving you a 5 count. And you got two choices. You can break by 5, or you're going to be DQ'd, right? So a lot of times you'll see, the heel's got the face in the corner, and he's going at him, and I give him a 5 count, and then they switch around. And now the face has got the heel in the corner and he's going at him. Well, guess what? I give him a 5 count as well because the same rule applies, right? So that it does. The what it does do is it lets me know the amount of energy that's going on in the ring, and how they're interacting. And if they're sitting really quiet, then I may tell the wrestlers, I'll say, hey, you need to get the fans to pop. They're not popping. They're just sitting there. You know, get them engaged, and that's when the wrestlers will turn around a lot of times and interact more with the fans, to try to show them, hey, you're part of this. The reason why we're in the ring is because you're in the seats. That's why we're here. We're here as wrestling entertainment for the fans. So it does play in an integral part. They say the referee's the third person in the ring. Well, the fans are that fourth entity that surrounds the ring and plays a big part, because that's why we're there. Otherwise, we'd be, wrestling to an empty building.
It's like Seattle Seahawks and their 12th man, what the wrestling
Yeah,
crowd
yeah,
can do.
that's exactly it. You're part of the team. You're part of the team.
I'm part of the team. Did you hear that?
Yeah,
I got
that's
official
right.
word from Referee Youngblood. I'm
You
part of
are
the
part
team.
of the
I need a
team.
jersey now.
That's right.
I need a jersey of some sort. Now you do get to wear, sort of a jersey. I mean, it's a referee shirt. And you join a big part of a team of referees that have, been in the industry for years. You can't have a match without a
Yeah,
referee. Even if it's an
yeah.
ODQ, you got at least count the three. Are there
Somebody's got to
any
count.
referees? Somebody's got to count. Are there any referees that you like to study, or maybe ones that you had as your favorites growing up that stood out to you?
So growing up, I think always the Hebners, of course, and Tommy Young, and like more recently have like Red Hughes in New Japan Wrestling, but locally here
Yes.
and NWA is Jared Fritz. If he was refereeing at WrestleCade as well, but he's an NWA referee that's local in the Winston Salem area, and he referees, on the independent circuit as well as on NWA. And I've been to two of his seminars already. I've learned a whole lot from him. He's very professional, very open, very willing to teach. And he is one that studies and actually watches you, and he has a good technique, like we did in the last seminar that he had gave, which was the Friday morning that WrestleCade started. Was he'd have us get in there, referee get in there, we'd start refereeing, and then he'd say freeze, just stop where you are. And then he'd come in and say, okay, here's the problem. You need to stand. You're standing here. I would stand over here if I were you. And this is why. And he would kind of take us through the explanations and stuff like that. And it really brought a lot of things home. So just from that couple of hours in the morning before WrestleCade in his seminar, that had a huge impact in how I referee, and I tried to immediately apply the things that I had learned from his seminar. So I really pay a lot of attention to him as a referee.
Wow, that's awesome. Jared Fritz,
Yeah.
if you're listening, that is really high praise from Referee Youngblood, and just
Shout out,
I
brother.
love I love the knowledge exchange, because that's the only way the business continues to evolve, grow, prosper, is if you share the knowledge. Like that,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
basically a industry of learning, constantly learning, because it's honestly like a constantly evolving industry. And because of that, goals change. You've gotten your goal
Yeah.
as to being a professional referee. And now we're in the new year of 2024. I have goals for the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast that I'm excited to do. One of them was to interview you and conduct this interview, which I'm super excited for. Are there any goals that you have in mind for 2024 or your referee career moving forward that you'd like to accomplish?
So I think as a referee, um, uh, I'd like to referee a match in WrestleCade, of course. Huge opportunity, you know, uh, to do that, and the doors it opens, if you're able to do that. So I was on the setup and teardown crew on this staff this past WrestleCade. So I worked with the ring setup and the ring teardown, and then during the WrestleCade conference, I was doing whatever kind of odd things needed to be done, change out canvases between shows, those kind of things. And again, that got me the opportunity to meet some of the key people with AML wrestling and with the WrestleCade and with different promotions and stuff like that. So I think that's one of my goals that I want to do is I want to referee a match in WrestleCade. I think that would be just awesome. And of course, I think every referee on the independent circuit would love to, do an NWA show or AEW or Impact or WWE or something like that, and I mean, I'm pretty realistic. I'll be 59 in February, so I don't see I don't see WWE, Vince McMahon calling me up to the Orlando to come out there and try out and stuff. Not at my age, uh, but I think I'm pretty fast in the ring. Uh, I think I'm pretty quick. I try to make my calls as clean as I can, as loud as I can, and hopefully the right people will see that. And if nothing else, give me a shot, and just say, hey, we'll put you on NWA Power, and see how you do, or we'll put you in the ring at WrestleCade, or we'll give you a TV shot or something. I mean, I've done on the independent circuit TV matches like at School of Morton. They have the YouTube channel, and for a little while they did Fight TV. So we had some matches on Fight TV, pay per view, and that kind of stuff. And YouTube channel is pay per view. You know, uh, so I've got TV experience doing that, which is awesome because just like wrestling and wrestling for TV is totally different. Refereeing on TV is totally different. So it's a total different aspect that you have to keep in mind, when you're doing that. So it's a total different world that you have to learn to operate in, because I think in the end that's a lot of people's goal, whether you're a wrestler, an announcer, uh, a referee, whatever it is, to see your face on TV, doing your craft, whichever your craft is, whether it's commentator, uh, ring announcer, wrestler, referee, camera person. I think it's to see your end product on TV.
Yeah. And hey, I mean, 59, don't let people look down on you for your age, because as long as
Oh,
you're able to do it and you're
thanks,
enjoying it and you're good at it, like those opportunities come. And I hope those opportunities come. We got about
thanks.
30 seconds before we got into our last commercial break. Where can people find you, Referee Youngblood?
So I'm on Facebook as under Referee Youngblood. I'm also on Facebook as Ramrod, which is Ramrod Daniel, Ramrod Daniel on Facebook, and that has to do with my biker life. But and then also email wise, it's referee.youngblood@gmail.com, and I'm working on the whole Twitter stuff and TikTok and all those things, but uh, I'm a little slow learner as far as that goes, but mostly Facebook. You'll find me.
Hey, that's awesome. Go email him, book referee. It's your 3 count that you can get. Referee Youngblood, thank you so much for hopping in on Drop the Mic this week. And we're going to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to preview this week's Hard to Kill pay-per-view as TNA returns back on Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com as part of your Wrestling Wednesday card. We've had a huge show to talk about. Thanks to The Rock showing up last week. Me and Mike from the Mouth Off with Mike Wrestling Podcast got to talk about that. Very special thank you to Referee Youngblood. It's going to be a huge 2024 for the podcast as we go out and we get to interview some referees, some wrestlers, some people in the wrestling business. I'm super excited. Referee Youngblood will always have the title next to his name that he was the first ever interview that I got to do on the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. And then now we get to do a segment that I'm really excited for. It's been a few months in the making, with TNA coming back, being rebranded from Impact Wrestling. And as I searched high and wide for somebody who would be a great person to bring on the podcast, I was following this Instagram account that you guys should go follow called Talkin Suplexes. He does great polls every other few days. They're really tough a lot of times. I got to sit there and think on it for a second, have to go back and vote and everything. It's a great Instagram, but he also has a blog. But without further ado, welcome in B to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast for the first time. Bro, how are you doing?
Hey everyone, I'm good, Mike. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Super excited to have you on the show and super excited to have TNA coming back. And it's been a few years. They dissolved from TNA and the 6-sided ring to TNA and the 4-sided. And then they eventually just went away to be Impact Wrestling. And Scott D'Amore broke the news in the ring. I believe it was Bound for Glory, where he was like, we're back. We're bringing back TNA, and the pay-per-view name is Hard to Kill, which I think is a pretty good name for it. What do you think about just rebranding in general? Do you think it's going to help TNA gain more exposure or some of that fan base back?
That, honestly, I think that is kind of tricky, but right now you have those fans that have been watching TNA since Scott took over and know how much it has improved. And then you have those fans who still, like, for whatever reason, refuse to let go of what happened 15, 20 plus years ago with TNA. But my hope is that by going back to the TNA name, people do start taking notice and checking in more and saying, okay, something good is happening here. Let me give them another chance.
Yeah, and it's huge. Like, if you haven't watched some of their content the last couple years, it's not like the old TNA jokes back from the Dixie Carter days or the Hulk Hogan days or why is TNA still around? They are hard to kill.
Yeah.
And one of the matches that turned me on a couple years ago was Josh Alexander versus Frankie Kazarian. Kazarian getting that spotlight as a singles wrestler, and they had a 5-star match. And I was like, whoa, dude, this Josh Alexander kid is really good. Got to meet him not long after that match and told him just how great that match was. And TNA could be a landing spot for somebody who's recently been released from WWE or recently left AEW, kind of floating in the free agent pool. You guys got to keep your eye on TNA and keep your eye on this weekend. As we see a huge free agent pool right now, are there any names that stick out to you and say he would make a really good fit in this new TNA?
Mustafa Ali, without a shadow of a doubt. I think maybe I'm gonna still call him Dolph, but nickname him. If depending on what he's doing with New Japan, I think he would be a good asset to TNA, and he has that name value enough that if he joins TNA, a few people will jump over just to see what he's doing over there. Um, trying to think who else. I would say Mustafa, Dolph. I always go back and forth. Like they really need someone with a big enough following that if TNA is able to acquire them, people are just gonna watch TNA because of that person, and then they'll be hooked in. But I don't really think any of the recent free agents have that big of a following to be able to establish that for the company.
I think Dolph Ziggler could be, like, that's the biggest name other than, like, Mercedes Moné, but Mercedes would be, like, dropping the Monet to get
Yeah.
her because she is,
Oh
like,
yeah.
asking for, like, one of the largest deals in wrestling history.
Oh yeah. I don't blame her, but so I'll say um maybe last year or 2 years ago, whenever Bray Wyatt first got released from WWE, I had wrote a blog saying like if Impact at the time is able to acquire him, he could be a game changer for them. Just based on his creativity, the following he had. So what now I think about it, actually, I don't know if his deal is exclusive with MLW, but Matt Riddle, if he goes over to TNA, he could really bring some eyeballs over there.
Dude, I like Matt Riddle coming to TNA potentially, like, dude, I thought he had all the potential in the world to he reminds me a lot of Kurt Angle. Based on his amateur background, a little bit of MMA in there, but the way he was able to capture, like, the entertainment aspect of
Yes.
WWE and fans just fell in love with him. Like, Matt Riddle could be, one of those good names for TNA, Matt Riddle, Dolph Ziggler. One name I do wanna mention is I don't know if we're supposed to call him Elias or
Oh,
Ezekiel or
Elijah.
Elijah. But
He could be a good
dude,
one.
he had so much potential in WWE, and then they just like poof, it just
Drop the
all like
ball.
went away.
So me personally, I enjoyed the Elias Ezekiel storyline. I liked how they played with us mentally. Did you like that storyline at all?
I I found it entertaining, but may have went a little too long. And with stories, I want my stories to be like, okay, here's the end point. And that was a time in Vince's booking that was like, we're just going to do this because it's funny, but there was no
Yeah.
like end point to what we were trying to do there.
Right.
But give credit to both Elias and Kevin Owens for, making it
Yeah,
what it
making the
was.
best of it, making it work. Yeah. So do you
Um,
think
dude,
Elias, we'll call him Elias for simplicity, do you think he has a big enough following for to join TNA and people will watch TNA just for him?
I don't know if he has that big of a following, but it's one of those names who can like rebuild, like Matt Cardona.
Okay.
Matt
Yeah.
Cardona's been
Okay.
able to rebuild himself on the indie scene. And I think that gives Elias, Elijah, whatever, that platform on TNA to rebuild his brand. But I think if you're going to try to get like more eyes to the product, Dolph Ziggler, Mercedes Monet, or Matt Riddle would be
Right.
those three names to go. And if you get
Yeah,
those,
I
like,
agree.
why not? Um, they got Osprey and Okada wrestling at Snake Eyes as well. Snake Eyes is actually the night after Hard to Kill, and a couple matches to note there are Josh Alexander versus Will Osprey, which I believe is an early match of the year candidate
Oh yeah.
between those two.
Definitely
Like,
see that.
whew. Uh, do you actually see Osprey letting Josh Alexander win this match?
I don't. It's just I don't like sometimes, because we cover wrestling in different aspects, we kind of go into the backstage stuff, so to speak. And it's hard. It's like Osprey's going to AEW. Um, this could help build his brand moving to AEW. So I don't really see him losing to Josh Alexander, but at the same time, Alexander could be like, "This is my house. There's no way you're losing to me." Um, so it'll be tough. It'll be tough. Like either way, they can't really go wrong with who wins. It's just one of those things. Like, which way does it go?
Yeah, and I'm expecting a 5-star, 6-star, 7-star, 8-star match. Meltzer might have to rewrite his star rubric on this one. Um, but yeah, especially with Osprey and his AEW deal, I don't think that he'll lose. But man, it's going to be like one of those matches you're like sitting at the edge of your seat and you're like, oh my gosh, but what if it happens?
Down to the wire.
Down to the wire. And then you got a match that I think is a little more easy to predict. You got the Mercy Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin teaming with Kazuchika Okada. This is Okada's first time back in TNA since before he got big in Japan, and they wasted away his character, wasted away his talent. They'll be facing up against the team of Moose, Brian Myers, and Eddie Edwards. This is the night following Alex Shelley versus Moose for the TNA World Championship. We'll talk in here in just a second. But if you get Will Ospreay and you put him against Josh Alexander, that's money. But you get Kazuchika Okada and you put him in a 6-man tag match, B, come on, bro. Like,
I
are
mean,
they wasting an appearance on Okada?
I think they are. And it's another thing. You don't really know what's going on behind the curtains that made that deal happen, but it's like, dude, you could have really put him up against somebody. I'm kind of drawing a blank on who he could wrestle with right now. But you put him in a singles match. You don't put him in a 6-man tag, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it also could be one of those things. The 6-man, like they've worked something out where the 6-man tag is leading to something, a singles match. What's their March pay per view?
Ooh.
Uh,
Oh,
um,
I'm
I'm drawing a
blanking on
blank of what
their
it.
March pay-per-view. I'm excited for this weekend with Hard to Kill.
Yeah, but
But
I'm saying it could be one of
dude,
those
like,
to lead down the road kind of situations.
yeah, because when I thought of this and was thinking about what we would talk today on the Drop the Mic podcast here in the last few minutes, like you just jogged my mind because it's like it's mostly Machine Guns and Okada versus Moose, Myers, and Edwards. And I was like, why wouldn't you just do Kazuchika Okada versus Moose, especially if Moose wins the main event and wins the world title, have his first match be against Okada. But what if this does set up Moose versus Okada for the title at future event? That's a good thought there, B. Uh,
Eh,
from the Talking Suplexes.
so we'll see if it happens, but I just like you said, like they're wasting them. They're wasting them in a 6-man match, but maybe they're not. We just, so you got to wait and see.
Yeah, we gotta wait and see. And we got a few more minutes left here on the Drop the Mic podcast. And so we have a card for Hard to Kill that we're going to run through. And we're basically going to just predict, like, okay, here's what we expect from the match. We're going to pick a solid winner, and then we'll put it up on our socials. That way people can compare, contrast. I'm not usually good at predictions, but I'm just slightly better at wrestling predictions than I am NFL predictions. So
Yeah, I
I
don't even
got I
try to
got a
myself.
fighting chance on this one. I got a fighting
Uh,
chance on this one. But the first match we're going to preview is ABC, Ace Austin and Chris Bay, also known as the Bullet Club, versus the Rascals versus Speedball Mountain of Trent Seven and Speedball Mike Bailey versus the debuting from NXT, the Grizzled Young Veterans. And this is for the TNA Tag Team Championships. New championship designs are getting revealed throughout the week. You can go to TNA socials to look at those. But it's a 4-way match that makes it twice, 3, 4 times hard to predict a winner. But who do you think walks out as the TNA Tag Team Champions this weekend?
uh, it's hard to go against ABC. I think they've built good momentum. They put in the work for TNA. and they are good young talent to help TNA into this new era. So everyone will have a good showing, but in the end, ABC will come out on top.
I think ABC is a great pick, just to be different and just because they are coming in from NXT and hopefully they'll get some eyeballs on the product. I'm going to take the grizzled young veterans, even if I'll be secretly rooting for ABC to throw up a too sweet on that one. We mentioned Josh Alexander faces Will Ospreay at Snake Eyes, but the night before he wrestles, they debuting Alexander Hammerstone. If you have not seen his work in MLW, I would highly recommend go check him out. A lot of people thought he was going to WWE, but he goes to TNA and he's wrestling Alexander. Do you think he wins his debut match in the company?
That's another one of those. Did he officially sign with the company, or it's just like a one-off?
I think he signed, but if it's a one-off, they would be dumb not to lock him up.
If he signed, I think he wins to make an impact. If he didn't sign, Josh Alexander all the way.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Josh Alexander on this one, especially since I don't think he beats Will Ospreay the night after. And dude, Alexander losing 2 nights
Two
in a
nights in a
row
row.
doesn't sit
Yeah.
well with me. It doesn't sit
Uh,
well with me as a fan. I'll take Alexander. There was a Knockouts Ultimate X match. One of the matches that was very foundational in the company. It's going to be Giselle Shaw, Zia Brookside, Jody Threat, Tasha Stills, Alicia Edwards, and Danny Luna in the Knockouts Ultimate X. I believe gets a shot at the Knockouts champion. Who are you taking in this one? I mean, it's basically
uh,
like me, my mo.
yeah, I'm taking Giselle. If you've been watching her heel work, she's really put the work and the effort in. And this could be again like not her crowning moment, but leading up to that.
Hey, that would be a big win for her career. I personally think it's going to be Tasha Steeles. Tasha Steeles, she returned for the Impact 1000 episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's returned with a fire under her. So I'm excited to see what she does in this new TNA regime. Uh, and then speaking of Ultimate X, we got the X Division Championship match. I think this is going to steal the show. You got Chris Sabin defending against Kushida and El Hijo del Vikingo. Bro, like this is
Uh,
going to be. Whoo, who you
yeah.
got in this one?
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Kushida. I,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's a toss up between Chris Sabin and Kushida. Honestly.
It is, especially with El Hijo doing some more AEW work. I think
Yeah.
the real winner is the fans
Oh,
because
definitely.
this is going to look like an old X Division match.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
But man, Chris Sabin's like he's like the pioneer. He like might be the greatest X Division champion of all time. This is TNA's rebrand. Fans will be familiar with his work. I'm going to take Sabin, but I wouldn't be shocked if Kushida wins. And then this one, because one of these people might be leaving TNA soon. The rumor mill is reporting that Trinity, formerly known as Naomi, might go back to her old moniker as Naomi as she's looking at a WWE return. She defends her Knockouts title against Jordan Grace. Dude, do you think it's time for Jordan Grace to get the title?
Yeah. Absolutely. Um. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it's definitely time for her to get the title. She's another one that has been putting in the effort, putting in the work, putting in great matches. So if the rumor mill is true, but you can't really see them going with Trinity. Well, then again, she could win. Trinity could win and then drop it at Snake Eyes, but for simplicity, Jordan wins here.
Yeah, I think this would be a good crowning moment for Jordan Grace, putting the Knockouts division on her back. Her stuff with Bully Ray back in the what would they call it? The Bound for Glory Gauntlet or Call Your Shot Gauntlet Battle Royal.
Yeah.
Uh, it was like, what? But I don't know where Trinity ends up, but I do think Jordan Grace wins. And then that gets us to our main event. Alex Shelley defending the new TNA World Championship against Moose. Who do you got in the main event?
Alex Shelley. I'm just such a big like Motor City Machine Guns fan that it's hard to go against Alex Shelley. And don't get me wrong, Moose has really improved since the pandemic. He has,
Yeah.
or maybe a little bit before that, but he has really like improved a lot character wise and ring wise. So if he wins, I wouldn't be shocked, but I'm going with Alex Shelley, especially because he's a TNA original, so he could help this new era essentially going in as the first
Yeah,
champion.
he could. I'm just not buying Alex Shelley as world champion. But Moose has the look, he has the skills, he's improved. And so maybe they can do something with Mercy Machine Guns, and then maybe they can branch off and do that match with Moose and Okada for the title that we were talking about a
Oh
couple
yeah,
minutes
yeah.
ago. Give me Moose on that one.
Okay.
That will be my prediction on that one. We're almost split in a way, but I think that makes it a little more exciting.
Yeah, a little more
See who
interesting.
wins. Hopefully it's me. But
Okay.
yeah, this is B's first time on the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. His social is down on the bottom at Talkin Suplexes on Instagram, no G. And then his blog, talkinsuplexes.com. Is there any blog you want them to go check out or shout out?
Honestly, just check them all out. I think the latest one I wrote was about AEW
Adam
going through some
Cole.
growing pains, being 5 years
Mhm.
old. By the time this episode drops, I'll have a new one kind of tying in with the whole New Year resolutions about wrestlers who could use a refresh for their personas or their presentations. Um,
Ooh, I'm gonna check that out for sure. And link it up on our Instagram so you guys can check it
Shit.
out as well. But no problem, man. I appreciate you hopping on. Thanks so much to our guests for an awesome show on Drop the Mic today. Between Mike from the Mouth Off of the Mike Wrestling Podcast, between Referee Youngblood and then B from Talking Suplexes. You can find them all on social media. Subscribe to Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel for more Drop the Mic episodes and follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We got TikTok now. But most of all, thank you for spending your Wrestling Wednesday with us on Drop the Mic. We have to get out of here, but wherever you do, don't drop the mic. We will see you all next week.